Hey, you guys. Okay, let's talk about this really quickly. Thank you for clicking on my videos. Thank you for being here on my channel. I really appreciate it. I'm going to start trying to give more time and attention to my videos. I'm probably going to start trying to keep them a little smaller, a little less lengthy, so I can get more of them done and start getting to some of these topics that I've been promising you guys and wanting to get to for the longest time. But in this video, I want to touch on this really quickly, okay? How a narcissistic individual, okay? And we all know that we all have narcissism, right? I know there's a lot of people that don't know that. They are really, the average person is just not really educated on what narcissism actually is. We all have this vague idea. And come to find out, my mother was telling me she watched a documentary the other day where a woman was discussing it. And she said when she interviewed people or asked people about it, the average person, they either had a limited, vague idea, or the first thing that came to their mind when they asked them what a narcissist was some kind of evil monster, like a serial killer. So the average person, and I wasn't either, up until about 4 or 5 years back. I've had to do an enormous amount of research and go down that rabbit hole. I dedicated myself to that. I didn't have to, but due to the relationship I was in and, the life I was born into and the path I was already on anyway, loving psychology, wanting to get a deeper understanding of human nature in the first place, it was about time. I needed a crash course in specifically narcissism. What it is, what does it mean to human nature? What's it all about? Where does it go wrong? See, here's what people get confused on, you guys. Narcissism is born into us, okay? It's not something that just only develops because somebody is abused or because something went wrong in their childhood. That is where the narcissism goes funky. That's what happens. That's where it goes wrong. And they don't come through their childhood with a well-developed ego and a decent attachment style to the parents. They don't properly make that break from the parents. There are things going on there, okay? And so it's when narcissism goes rogue and we fail to develop properly, mentally, emotionally, and in our ego. That is when it becomes pathological. That's when it becomes high-level narcissism. That's when it becomes narcissistic personality disorder, okay? Now, there's a lot of different studies out there about personality. Narcissistic personality disorder being genetic. It is a mental illness if it is the full-blown disorder, cluster B personality disorder, okay? But a lot of people are just really high on the narcissistic spectrum because they were traumatized or because they're hurt, because they're angry. We drive our narcissism up really high when we're hurting. A lot of us do it. No, get away from me. No, I don't have time for anybody today. I'm going through a breakup. Get away from me. No, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go do my nails, make myself feel better. Talk to you tomorrow. If you stay there and you let that get worse and you don't heal what happened to you in that breakup, then your narcissism could keep on climbing as far as you want to let it go up the spectrum. But if you do the work and heal the wound of your breakup, then your narcissism will come on back down to the healthy, normal amount that we all have each and every day, that we wake up out of the bed and go, oh, that looks good on me. I think I'll wear that today. I feel great. Oh, I don't feel so good about myself today, but let me put on this hair ribbon. Yes, I feel so much better. I feel great. I have a great level of confidence. I'm going to tell myself I can do it. I look good, I feel good, and I can accomplish. I can get through this day. No, I'm sorry. This is my space. No, you can't take the shirt off my back. This is mine. I love my shirt. It's my shirt. I own it. I paid for it. I'm sorry you can't take it. Those are boundaries, okay? All of those things is why we need narcissism, okay? I love sharing this because it took me a long while, several years, to really go deep and study, research, and do all the ins and outs. Being in a narcissistic relationship and looking back to the roommates, the partners I had already been with that were narcissists, observing their patterns over the years, talking to them, listening to their thoughts, doing all this research. It took me a long time to really get this stuff soaking in and understand it fully. And I feel like if everybody understands it fully, then a lot fewer of us are going to get hurt and taken advantage of by these people. If we can fully understand what is the difference, what is healthy narcissism? We all have some. What is high on the spectrum that we are in control of? It's up to us to bring it back down and regulate it. And what is full-blown personality disorder that really can't be controlled? It can't be healed. They are still responsible for their behaviors, but it's hard for them. It's hard for them to heal that. There's no cure for it, okay? So those are just some things we should look at, guys, and know. And I've always been interested in stuff like that. Anything that has to do with human nature and, what makes us tick. And especially things where there's a lot of confusion surrounding it. But I want to talk about... Hey! I want to talk about... Stop that! Something people are always asking, how is it that the narcissist, and remember, depends on what you're talking about. Are you talking about a narcissistic abuser that has gotten in a relationship with you and is trying to control and put all these tactics down on your life? Or are we talking about somebody that's just kind of high on the spectrum? Are we talking about somebody that has full-blown NPD? Always make those distinctions. It's going to depend, because that's going to depend. The answers to certain things, it will depend. They are not all identical. Absolutely not. They all come from different backgrounds, different influences, different reasoning, different brain structures. And there are different types of narcissists: grandiose, covert, fragile, malignant, communal narcissists. There's a lot of different types, okay? So, but a lot of people ask, how is it that the narcissistic abuser type can believe their own lies instantly? How can they make up a delusion, a false narrative? And I've paid attention because I wanted to know myself. I have paid attention to a person close to me for years. Like, okay, I know you're gaslighting me. I know you're arguing with me. I know you're pretending like you don't even... He would stand in my face like he didn't have a fucking clue about what he had just done the night before, or knowing full well. And so it took me a while to catch on to the fact that he had mental illness. And he does. He has, I'm almost certain he has the full-blown personality disorder. I would have to watch and pay very close attention to when he was aware of himself and when it was just a part of his automatic pilot, part of his brain structure, that it wasn't even occurring to him. Aloof and oblivious, it wasn't even occurring to him that he was doing it, that he was saying it, and that it was hurting people. And here's the thing that can confuse you with narcissists. They mix the truth with lies. There will always be fact with fiction. It'll always be intermixed. That's why it's hard for us to just go, it was this. No, it was that. No, it's both. And so, to answer the question, from my personal experience, okay, I'm not a doctor, little disclaimer, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do or what to act on. Please, please reach out for a professional help if you need it. And please always do your own research. Don't just listen to a person on the internet or just one person. Do your research, okay? This is just my personal experience and what I've observed and learned over the years. And I'm going to give you this insight from what I did. That's right. I've even experienced very high narcissism in my life before too. I do not have a personality disorder, though. I will tell you guys what I have been diagnosed with years ago. But the reason that a lot of narcissistic people can just act oblivious, what are you talking about? I didn't do that. Oh, well, that was you. You did, and just run you crazy and in circles like that. And they can literally block you out. They can move on from you and block out conversation. Don't you remember? Don't you remember what happened? You know, and you'll really be trying to work through the issues with them because you care, because you want to get it worked out. In their mind, if it is something embarrassing to them or they're ashamed of it, they know they did it, they have the ability to lie to themselves so greatly and to literally convince themselves. And I would pay attention, like, is he really convinced? Does he really, like, he feels it in his body? He's remembering it that way. He changed his whole brain structure to that false narrative. This shit gets deep, you guys. This is how damaged some of these narcissists are. Now, they're not all this progressed. That's what I'm saying. Be careful. Be careful. Don't just one size fits everything, okay? Because your narcissistic person may not be like mine or hers or his or vice versa. But you can, you can still take in info and patterns and pay attention. But yes, isn't that crazy? How if you watch them and observe their patterns, and it's like you can see it, that they know, like with my person, I knew damn well he knew. And the only way I would get it, I call it squirming. They squirm. My mother has a personality disorder. It's either dissociative or schizoid. She was diagnosed many years ago. We have the same family therapist that we had when I was 14. I still see her. She did all of our testing. Okay. I grew up with 2 narcissistic parents. Bipolar, alcoholic, abusive father. Abusive on every level. Mental, emotional, physical, violent, all of it. He was narcissistic as well. And my mother, in her own different way, she was also abusive. Kind of, cold, withdrawn, not very nurturing. And checked out, aloof. She was highly, she squirms. And still to this day, she's always had, trouble with intimacy, vulnerability, taking accountability, taking responsibility for certain things. If she's called out on it and confronted about it, that's too intimate for her. Speaking about love can be too intimate for her. If it gets too squishy, too loving, it's like she loves me, she loves us, and we know it, but we have to interpret it from her way. We have to be able to read her love language because of her brain structure. And I can get into that in other videos, what that came from, because she really didn't grow up in a lot of trauma. So I've had lifelong experience navigating with people with personality disorders. It's all in my family. And my own parents lacking empathy, lacking real depth, emotional depth and connection, lacking, when I talk to them, there's gaslighting and squirming and maneuvering. And I've had to deal with that kind of thing, a lot in my life. So fast forward to a partner. Naturally, I attracted people like that, okay? And, for a while, that's not going to seem that fucking abnormal to me because I've been around it all my life. It's not that I want to trauma bond to them. It's just mother, father, siblings. There's mental illness all in my family, personality disorders. It's not that abnormal to me, so I really have to watch myself there. I have an anxiety disorder, not a personality disorder. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, with panic attacks, with obsessive compulsive traits, which means I do not have full-blown obsessive compulsive disorder. I have the traits and tendencies that I can go there and get stuck there if I'm not really careful. It is just another manifestation of my anxiety disorder. And I have to be, I have to stay on top of it. I'll be talking about that soon too. But anyway, So how do these narcissists just instantly clean the slate? Just instantly believe the false narrative. And why do they do it? I want to get into talking about what triggers them to do that, because I can provide some insight from what I saw with my person or a couple of people, and then what I was doing in my life. I can't tell you what everybody does, nor can anybody, not even a professional. They cannot tell you what everybody does or why they all do it, because it's not going to be for the same reason, okay? But here is how a lot of them, when they don't want to face something and they don't want to answer you, or they're ashamed of it and they don't want to change the behavior. Okay, first of all, I'll tell you why. A lot of times, from my experience, they are on such an emotionally immature level in the first place, and they are so emotionally dysregulated in the first place, that they are not going to respond to you like an adult would, and they're not going to rationalize it or reason with, use that type of logic like an adult would. They are in their wounded inner child almost all of the time. Yes, a highly narcissistic person, especially if they're an addict, especially if they are an addict, you can count on it. They're going to be in their wounded inner child almost all the time. So you know when you confront them with something, it's just exhausting, okay? Because a part of their brain didn't grow up. Now that happens for different reasons, and some people can heal it, some people cannot. When we are traumatized as children, a part of our brain stops growing. Sexually traumatized, verbally, mentally abused, physically assaulted and beaten and abused, any of that, a part of our brain stops growing at the point that that's happening to us, unless we get therapy and work our way through the healing process on all that, okay? And so as we go into adulthood, there's a part of our brain that's still 5, that's still 12, 13, whatever age we were when we began being assaulted, when we began being taken advantage of sexually, or when we began being emotionally abused, or whatever the case was, abandoned, okay? A part of our brain, we might be 27, we might be 35, standing there having a conversation with you, but a part of our brain, if we have not done the proper healing work and matured, a part of our brain goes back to age 5. Right then, because a lot of times narcissists who are unhealed like that, the lines blur and they see their lovers as parents, okay? This shit takes some deep understanding, okay? And there's a lot of videos out there on this stuff. There is no one size fits all. This is just some little ideas for you guys to think on, to think about. But from my experience, the lines start to blur, and the narcissist not only sees their partner as a lover, it doesn't stop there. They don't ever really grow up and get on the adult level with their partner. They see that partner as a parent. A great deal of the time, the lines start to blur. They start to feel these rebellions and anger and contempt, and all of these triggers start coming up from childhood, because when you get involved with the lover, that's the most vulnerable you're going to become. And it really triggers up some fear and terror, some beautiful yet terrifying feelings in a narcissist, in anyone. It may trigger up all of their scary trauma or, horrible things. And at the same time, it may trigger up beautiful, loving things, nurturing things, but they are going to, they're going to start acting out and doing things because of all that fear and terror inside and those triggers. So that's kind of why they will create a false narrative really quickly and lie to themselves about what they did to you, and they can believe it just like that. Yes, they literally step into that character, and they are living in the dimension of the false narrative, as if that's exactly how it went down. They didn't do shit. They don't know what you're talking about. they can create that whole fantasy and feel it, literally feel it in their body that you did it to them, not the other way around. They can literally adapt their whole body and the way they act from then on based on that false narrative, based on that lie, that delusion that they created about you. They will tell themselves that every day, like a brainwashing or something. Now, I've told you kind of why they do it. It's because they're scared of confrontation. It's because they are on an emotionally regressed level. They are very childlike in certain parts of their brain when it comes to having an adult love, having an adult relationship. And a part of them starts to trigger back to childhood when you're confronting them about, why did you do this to me? What is this? Let's get this on the table. They're hearing mom and dad. Okay, here they go with their emotionally immature, with the lack they have there. They are looking at you like that parent, and they're going in defense mode. How dare you, mom? How dare you talk to me like that, mom? You're hurting my feelings, mom, dad. They are getting butthurt and defensive instead of being on the emotionally mature level of your lover, of your partner. So this is what's going on in their brain, okay? For many different reasons and there's a lot of different things that can be triggering them off to protect themselves with the false narrative. Now, let's take it on back a little further. This is where it gets interesting. This is where I have personal knowledge. A lot of times, a highly narcissistic person was traumatized in their childhood. They have mother or father wounds, unhealed mother and father wounds. Something happened to them in their childhood, whether it was their mother or father, whether it was their stepmother or father, whether it was their aunt or uncle, older cousin, brother, sister, something. But a lot of times it has to do with the parents, even if it was just that the parents never knew about it and couldn't save them or help them or whatever. A lot of narcissists have been traumatized in their childhoods, okay? Something isn't healed in there. And when you grow up in a home, especially where it's your own parent doing it to you, whether it's physical violence, mental cruelty, emotional abuse every day, whether it's shaming you, ridiculing you, making you feel not important, whether it is sexually taking advantage of you, molesting you every day, whatever it is. When you grow up with a parent or both parents, or just one of them doing it and the other one not protecting you, the other one being scared and looking the other way and acting like it isn't happening, whatever the case is, when you grow up in a home like that, or a step parent or an aunt or uncle, when you grow up and you are at your most vulnerable age, just a small child or whatever, and someone takes advantage of you, especially the ones that are taught this is done to them on a regular basis, where they're being molested on a regular basis, they're being beaten, mentally twisted, like you grow up around this all the time. Here's what happens, guys. When you grow up in a home that hurts like that, a war zone or whatever, you get very good at living in your head. I know this for a fact because I did it. That's why the psychologists say all abused kids want to be rock stars. They all fantasize that when they grow up, they're going to be superheroes or rock stars. It's because it goes along with the narcissism. They all want recognition. Yes, when we're little, traumatized, abused kids, yes, we all dreamed about stuff like that. If you ask me, that was my thing. I wanted to grow up and be a singer, which I still love to sing though. And I've recorded several songs. It is what it is. But yes, I used to live in my head. I would not live in the house. I was very good at leaving my body, projecting myself somewhere into the future where I was powerful. I was strong. I was grown up. I was independent. I was, that fantasy of I didn't have to be abused anymore. I didn't have to be controlled and smothered anymore. I didn't have to be trapped in this anymore. I often lived in fantasy that either someone was going to come save me or that I was just a grown, I would envision myself as a grown up and what I would look like and how powerful and strong I would be, and, you know, what apartment I would have, and, you know, and yes, I did. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted, for a long time in my childhood, I fantasized about being a pop star. And, you know, one day they'll all know, you know, one day I'll get through this pain and I'll be something, you know, because when you're growing up in trauma, when your body's being taken advantage of, when your, you know, parents are treating you a certain way, when they're not speaking to you in a loving way, in a way that makes you feel safe to share your feelings, when they're not making you feel important, when all of that is going on, whatever happened to you,